Hello, my name is Ralph Nappi. I'm president of NPES, the association that represents the manufacturers of pre-press, press, and post-press equipment in our industry. But I'm also here wearing my hat as part of Premier, the research arm of NPES, and a separate entity that many of you know that focus on anywhere from 4 to 5 or 6 studies a year. Well, one of our most exciting studies in 2015, about to be released in the first few weeks of January of 2016, is what we're calling the future of print in the U.S. And it's focusing on the landscape implications and opportunities for the future of print in the U.S. Many of you will know, going back a few years ago, 2 years ago, we actually engaged an organization called the Economist Intelligence Unit to assist us with the worldwide market of print. The Economist, EIU, is part of the Economist publications, Economist magazine, which many of you are aware of. Well, we went back to them and realized that they were the right organization to help us look at this very broad picture. They have a great depth and great breadth, and not only that, because of the worldwide market for print, a study that not only received great acclaim here in the United States, but around the world, we realized that their experience in our industry has certainly provided them a great benefit for us looking at what was originally supposed to be consolidation in the United States. With me to my right is a gentleman that was very involved in that, David Humphreys. He was the author and brainchild behind our worldwide market for print, and when we reached out to The Economist, thought that this David and his staff would be great to do. David serves as Director of Custom Research for the Economist Intelligence Unit, and again has become a pretty good expert in our industry. What we want to do now is take a little bit of time, the next 5, 6, 7 minutes, to share with you a little bit about what the implications are of this study, and so that when you receive it, you'll know a little bit more about it. David, welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
You know, one of the things that I think is interesting about this study is how we started it. As I had mentioned before, we started this study as a consolidation of our industry, particularly what is taking place in the commercial print side. Mm-hmm. Some of you are aware, you've seen the data before. If you go back to 2000 and we go back to 2001, there were 42,000 commercial printing establishments in the United States. In 2014, that had dropped down to just over 29,000. So our head was involved around how's consolidation going to impact our industry. David, with the panel you developed, which I think is exciting, and also the shift of this from a consolidation study to something much broader, tell us how that happened.
Yeah, when we were thinking about the objective of what you were trying to give and the insight for your members and those in the industry, we took a step back and thought about what would give us insight about the forces at play that would give us some sense of what the future would be for print. Mm-hmm. And so with that in mind, the Economist Intelligence Unit regularly convenes what we call expert panels, mm-hmm. people who come from different walks of life that can provide us a perspective of those outside forces in particular, from a technology, from a publishing and a media, from an advertising and the like, mm-hmm. to give us some sense of where the market was going, what are those underlying forces, and be able to project into the future what is the real opportunity for print.
Now, you mentioned some segments that are interesting. How do we gather that information from the advertising segment, from the direct mail segment? What was the group you used to do that?
So the first thing that we did is we looked and grouped them into different areas, from a consumer perspective, from a technology, from a publishing, advertising, and packaging, and got experts from those particular industries, certainly from The Economist, from organizations like CNET, from Campbell Soup, and the like. And so we identified those people that had a long history in their particular industries that could understand first the forces at play and explain it to us as well as individuals from the print industry, small and big printers, from the equipment manufacturers and the like, and give us some sense of how this related to print. So we identified those individuals and convened them in part as a panel.
That's a good point, because I think you'll remember when we did this, along with Greg and Brad, who helped us develop this study, we were very focused on the advisory group and looking at people. We didn't want to be talking to just ourselves when it came to the consolidation. Again, how this started, consolidation of the print industry. And this is what The Economist brought to the table so well. Not only did we want to have some of those, but more of the people on your panel had to exist outside our industry so we could get some focus, I should say, get some ideas on how other industries dealt with consolidation, all right? Again, I keep on referencing consolidation. It was your panel that really helped us lead us to the point that this is more than that.
Absolutely.
Do you remember, I know Paul Rossi, who is the editor of, what's Paul's role with The Economist?
He is the head of the Economist Group, media group, globally.
Right. Some of you remember, some of the board members in particular of NPS, we actually had Paul as a speaker at our meeting a few years ago, and his focus allowed him to bring not only the broadest perspective of the economy, but as a publisher of a publication, we thought we were quite honored to have him involved. Who are some of the other players that you have? What other industries?
We had the head of CNET, which is a technology publication that's mainly online. We'll talk a little bit about how their foray into the print industry. You had a senior executive from Campbell Soup that spent her career in the area of packaging.
Right. Very important market for us.
Senior executives coming from the advertising world, our own Staffing Camback, who spent the last 25 years in the world of consumer. And so those were the group of experts that we brought to the table for them to understand and define what those forces at play and link that back to the print industry. And I think the interesting point is they had no stake in this game, but just to give the truth.
Good point, exactly.
And it will be interesting as we discuss the results of how on their own identify certain areas in which they believe print can succeed in the future.
Well, let's do that. Let's get into the results. One of the notes that I made that was interesting is this expert panel's discussion. They certainly talked about current and future trends, but they came to some conclusions, 3 areas that I thought was interesting. The explosion of technology, the rise of data, and also social media. Can you share a little bit about why those 3 were focused on?
Yeah, I think this explosion of data underpins a lot of these different industries. When we have more information on how consumers behave and what they're looking for, we can make better decisions around marketing, we can make better decisions around product and targeting and the like. And while there has certainly been an explosion already of big data, the ability to place sensors and any different types of devices, home devices and the like, will give us a wealth of information to be able to understand those consumer trends and be able to target, which is another very big trend, that mass personalization. So that you and I as consumers, the marketeers, target us differently from the types of products that we're looking when we're trying to experience them and the like. And so big data is certainly a big portion of that. On the flip side, in social media, it has certainly become a primary outlet in terms of information. Facebook has overtaken Google as a primary link to how people get news today. But at the same time, there is clear evidence about social media fatigue. That people, while they may get their news, they go to trusted brands to confirm the information if that is correct or
Now,
not.
what's the implication of that for our industry, for the print industry?
Well, for the print industry, from a social media standpoint, is first, the value of brands for information is at a premium. And while individuals may garner their information and gloss over what they get through social media, they will go to organizations like The Economist and the New York Times to verify and get more in-depth information. And so the quality of that information is as important as ever before.
So depth and breadth, credibility.
Absolutely.
Okay, got it.
At the same time, from a marketeer standpoint, being able to reach out to individuals through social media and the like is very valuable. But there's a low trust in that advertising itself, not to mention the blockability of those ads and ad fraud as well. And so the value of advertising through a mobile device and a digital device isn't necessarily as high as people had thought in the past. Whereas print may have a different type of experience, as long as it's prepared the right way.
Are there any particular things that really surprised you as you got into this study?
First thing that surprised us is individuals who came from different walks of life, senior executives, had a very consolidated view of the opportunity for print. And I think the term that they brought up is print can be safety. Safety for consumers who are inundated with information, safety for consumers who are trying to process information at historical levels, whereas print offers a different perspective. And I remember the example of CNET, which throughout its history has been an online medium, has developed a print magazine because it was a different way for them to connect with a different type of consumers. And so we have many different examples of individuals who talked about the value of print, as long as the printers, the manufacturers, and the like are prepared to leverage big data, and understand the consumers and the role they can play. Also to be able to have a seat at the table and strategically think, what are my customers' issues they face? And then that print can be part of that solution.
Okay, so the big data is a discussion that we've been hearing a lot about, not just in our industry, but others. Was the panel able to bring that down to another level to say the impact on big data, leveraging it, and/or what part is just noise in the big data discussion?
Well, the first thing the panel talked about is from an advertising perspective of how they're leveraging that data to enhance the return on investment that they get on their dollars. And more the ad dollars are going what we call programmatic buying of advertising, that is automatic in nature. But they're looking to put those ad dollars where they have the biggest impact.
Right.
The big data allows people to understand what that impact. If I'm reaching out to a certain consumer, it isn't just about the eyes, but it's about the experience. And one of the examples that was brought up, that the experience through a print, direct mail, maybe see less eyes, but have a high quality and a higher hit rate than something that's seen through the mobile side. At the same time, big data, as we get more information on how consumers behave, and we have a better process to managing that, it is going to inundate how decisions are taken. And I think it's certainly a message to those in the print industry that you need to get on top of that big data. How do you capture data and how people interact with magazines and direct mail and the like, so that you can make that case to those that are making decisions around advertising.
Right, let me ask you another thing. Another interesting finding in here was about the talent pool, future demographics and the talent pool for industry in the future.
Well, it's interesting. That's one of the things that surprised us. The EIU, I have to say, the single most important topic our clients across industries ask about is talent.
Right.
I can't find the talent that I need. And this goes across any different type of industry you can talk about. But this was something that individuals, both from the print industry, I can't find people with commercial expertise.
Right. Yeah.
How do I sell the concept as print of being an exciting industry? And the millennial is the quintessential example of a target of talent. Most of those coming out with STEM degrees are in that generation. How do you track them into an industry that they perceive to be rather archaic?
You know, which is interesting because here in our industry, I just got finished sharing with you at the beginning of this video that we've dropped from 45 to 24,000, 29,590. So to think that drawing talent into our industry, we've had such consolidation of not only companies but the workforce, is still the key issue. I know with NPS we have associated with a foundation, the Graphic Arts Education and Research Foundation, and that issue is still driving. So whether it's an EIU study that we're talking about the future of print, whether it's over here dealing with colleges and colleges and secondary schools, the talent pool is still in the top 3, I would say, most important issues that come out.
And then think if you're a printer or a company in this industry that's trying to offer value-added, very specific type of services. You need people with talent that can drive that from a product development standpoint, from a commercial perspective, from a leadership perspective. And so it's about how do we attract that talent to this industry, reposition it as a way that's exciting and dynamic, and at the same time, a group in the workforce, an aging population, that has a wealth of knowledge of how this industry has behaved, and that consolidation. How do you capture that knowledge and feed it back in part of the solution? So talent is certainly one of the topics for those that are in the industry. I'm certainly doesn't surprise them to hear that.
You know, before we started this interview, we were talking a little bit, and you shared with me one of the panelists that you had talked to or had in contact, and we did this back in September at Graph Expo when this panel got together. One is already putting some of the ideas and thoughts in place. Tell me a little bit about that discussion in the panels.
Yeah, part of it is directing towards those millennials, understanding
Okay.
what motivates them. Most millennials today, I think
Mhm.
upwards of 40%, work in a freelance capacity. That's 10% higher than the generation before them. They're also motivated by corporate social responsibility factors.
Mhm.
And so the printer that we talked about is starting to build in
Really?
programs, to drive in talent, to reposition the company as an exciting one. At the same time, thinking how to retain that talent,
Mhm.
in this case, creating volunteer programs.
Right.
um,
Volunteer programs.
For
really?
their organization
Wow.
to be able to feed into that motivation.
Mhm.
And so that's just one example of the things that people can do right away to make your organization more attractive, to attract and keep talent.
Okay, let's wrap up with this. I mean, I think that's a good transition. What I like about this is, so here's a panelist, and we had about, what was it, how many, 10 or 12? What do we have in the group?
About 12 people,
All right,
yes.
so we had 12 panelists help us develop this study. The Economist Organization put it all together, all right? Here's one, and we picked some of the smartest minds inside and outside the industry to sit on this panel, right? One of the smartest minds in our industry is taking the stuff that he listened to from his peers and putting it in place already, all right? I'm going to ask you, David, if there are two particular driving implications or forces or things that our listeners should put in place from this study, what would the two be?
The first would be, don't get stuck in the middle, particularly trying to compete in terms of cost.
Okay.
All right, there was a concept that one of our experts,
Mhm.
the inverse J curve, that people understand
Mhm.
how industries develop and how the move towards cost has actually bounced back as consumers want a differentiated experience and value. And so very few printers and the manufacturers and the like can compete simply based on cost.
So
You need-
to be the low-cost provider is likely a losing battle.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so to specialize, if that is certain types of output that you produce in the
Mhm.
packaging and advertising, is focused particularly on industries,
Right.
is something that some have already gone
Okay.
through
Right.
that shift, others need to do that. The other piece that I would say is think bigger picture than just print. Think about where you fit in terms of solving your clients' issues of how they reach to their customers and how you communicate and how you drive value.
Okay.
There was an example that was brought up in terms of different packaging formats
Right.
and how that drives value.
Right.
Packaging is a competitive strategic
Right.
advantage today.
Mhm.
And using that helps you extract more value because you connect to that consumer
The
experience.
presentation you gave at the NPS annual meeting last month, or at the very end of October, I should say, about 6 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, gave a very good example of the packaging that David is talking about. How, and we all know that packaging is a very important part of the future growth of our industry. But executing that and putting that in place, and again, you know, the extra parts of our business that we do, such as the mailing and fulfillment, the database management, areas of design, that's low-hanging fruit that's already gone. So finding places like this, like you had discussed, are very important.
And certainly look at the bigger picture and say, can I do this not only through my internal organization, but think of partnerships.
Right.
Agencies are also going through a
Good
revolutionary
point.
change.
Right.
And so if you can bring and enhance their value that they offer to the marketplace, go ahead and do so. And one of the last points that I would mention is the experts believe that print has much more value to offer than the piece of paper itself.
That's cool.
That there's insights that industries, big and small,
Mhm.
don't have it all figured out. And so don't be afraid to take a seat at that strategic table
Mhm.
to try to drive solutions.
That's good. David, thanks for joining me to
It's a
do this.
pleasure.
I appreciate it. I need you all to be aware, keep your eyes out for the future of print in the U.S. First couple of weeks, if you're really anxious, just drop me an email, give me a call at NPES or Greg Safko. We're happy to get it to you. Thanks again, David, for being here, and thanks for listening.